First contact with humanity. The Empire was told to withdraw. Immediately. The stars stretched endlessly across the view screen of the Velkari scout ship. Commander Thelax stood with his forearms crossed behind his back, watching the data scroll across the holographic displays. His purple skin gleamed under the ship's artificial lights as he studied the readings with growing interest. "Commander, we've confirmed the quantum signatures," his science officer reported. "There's definitely intelligent life in this system. Third planet from the star." Thelax nodded slowly. This was the 47th star system the Velkari Empire had explored in this sector. 23 of those systems had contained intelligent species. All 23 had joined the Empire within days of first contact. Some had joined willingly. Others had needed convincing. The Velkari battlecruisers were very convincing. "Send word to the Imperial fleet," Thelax commanded. "Tell them we've found another one." 3 days later, the diplomatic vessel arrived with its escort. The battlecruiser Dominance was 5 kilometers long, bristling with plasma cannons and particle beam weapons. It had destroyed entire planetary defense fleets before. The Velkari always brought it to first contact meetings. A show of force prevented misunderstandings. Captain Jiwan sat in the command chair of the human ship, Odyssey Dawn. She was young for a captain, only 35 years old, with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Around her, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. Earth's unified defense fleet had detected the alien ships 2 days ago. Now they were here, at the edge of human space. "Analysis, Dr. Hyun?" Jiwan asked. The chief scientist looked up from his console. Dr. Hyun was older, with gray streaking his black hair. He had spent 20 years studying the possibility of alien life. Now that possibility had become reality. "The larger ship is definitely military," Dr. Hyun said. "I'm reading weapons signatures similar to our experimental plasma cannons, but much more advanced. The smaller ship appears to be unarmed, probably diplomatic." "Can we translate their language yet?" Jiwan asked. "Yes, Captain. The AI has been analyzing their radio transmissions. We should be able to communicate within the hour." Jiwan smiled. Humanity had prepared for this moment for 3 decades. Since the Unification War had ended and Earth's nations had finally joined together, they had looked to the stars and wondered. Now they had their answer. They were not alone. On the Velkari diplomatic vessel, Commander Thelax received a message that made him pause. The primitive species had opened a communication channel, in perfect Velkari language. "Greetings, travelers," the message said. A female voice, calm and friendly. "This is Captain Jiwan, of the human vessel Odyssey Dawn. We welcome you to our solar system. We invite you to peaceful discussions and cultural exchange." Thelax's 4 eyes widened slightly. The species had decoded Velkari language in less than 3 days. That was unusual. Most species took weeks. But the Velkari had encountered clever species before. Cleverness didn't matter when faced with superior firepower. "I am Commander Thelax of the Velkari Empire," he replied. "We come in peace, but also in strength. The Velkari Empire spans 47 star systems and protects 23 species under our guidance. We offer you the same protection." There was a pause. Then the human captain replied, "We appreciate your offer, Commander. However, humanity governs itself. We would be happy to establish trade relations and share scientific knowledge, but we cannot accept foreign governance. Perhaps we could meet face to face. We have a station near the 4th planet, Mars Station 7. It would be neutral ground." Thelax felt a ripple of amusement. They all said something like this at first. Pride was common among young species. They would learn. "Very well, Captain Jiwon. We will meet you at your station. But understand this. The Velkari Empire does not negotiate sovereignty. We offer protection and membership. The alternative is unfortunate." "We understand, Commander," Jiwan replied. Her voice remained calm. Too calm, Thelax thought. Perhaps she didn't understand the situation. "We look forward to meeting you in person." Odyssey Dawn. Out. Back on Earth, Admiral Taiho stood in the command center, deep beneath Seoul. The walls were covered with screens showing every ship in the human fleet, every weapons platform, every defensive station. Taiho was 60 years old, a veteran of the Unification War. He had seen what humans could do to each other. He prayed they would never have to show that to the aliens. "Sir, the aliens have agreed to meet at Mars Station 7, an officer reported. "Good," Taiho said. "Alert Colonel Seojin. Tell him to prepare the station for diplomatic reception. Full hospitality, but keep the security teams ready. We don't know what we're dealing with yet." "Yes, sir. Should we mobilize the fleet?" Taiho considered. The human fleet had 300 warships. Not many compared to Earth's old navies, but each ship carried weapons that would have terrified their ancestors. Railguns that could accelerate projectiles to a fraction of light speed. Fusion missiles, directed energy weapons, and other things, secret things, that had been built during the paranoid years after unification. "Quiet mobilization," Taiho ordered. "I want every ship ready to move, but I don't want to provoke them. Not yet. Let's see if diplomacy works first." 3 days later, the Valkyrie shuttle approached Mars Station 7. Commander Thelax and his diplomatic team expected a small outpost, perhaps a mining station or research facility. What they found shocked them. Mars Station 7 was enormous. It orbited the red planet like a metallic moon, its rotating sections creating artificial gravity. Through the viewport, Thelax could see hundreds of ships docked at the station. Lights glowed from thousands of windows. Plants grew in transparent biodomes. This wasn't an outpost. This was a city in space. "How many of them live here?" his second officer whispered. "Scanning shows approximately 200,000 life signs," the science officer replied quietly. "Commander, this station has fusion reactors, quantum computing arrays, and industrial fabrication facilities. This species is more advanced than we thought." Thelax said nothing. Advanced or not, they were still just one species on one world. The Valkyrie Empire controlled 47 star systems. This changed nothing. The shuttle docked smoothly. Thelax and his team stepped out into a clean, bright corridor. Human guards stood at attention wearing dark blue uniforms, but they didn't point their weapons. They simply stood ready. Professional. Military discipline. A human woman approached. She was small compared to the 2-meter-tall Valkyrie, but she walked with confidence. She wore elegant diplomatic robes and smiled warmly. "Welcome to Mars Station 7, she said in perfect Valkyrie. "I am Ambassador Nari. We're honored by your visit. Please follow me to the diplomatic chamber. We've prepared refreshments compatible with your biology. Our scientists analyzed your atmosphere requirements and dietary needs." Thelax felt the first small warning in his mind. They had analyzed Valkyrie biology in 3 days. They spoke perfect Valkyrie. They had built a city in space. These humans were more capable than expected. But the Valkyrie Empire had not conquered 23 species by being cautious. They had done it by being strong. "Lead the way, Ambassador," Thelax said. As they walked through the station, Thelax observed everything. Human children playing in a park under artificial sunlight. Scientists working in laboratories visible through transparent walls. Engineers repairing some kind of advanced propulsion system. Everyone looked healthy, educated, organized. They reached the diplomatic chamber. It was beautiful, with a view of Mars hanging in space beyond the windows. The Valkyrie delegation sat at a curved table. Across from them sat Ambassador Nari, Captain Jiwon, and Dr. Hyun. "Shall we begin?" Nari asked pleasantly. Commander Thelax activated a holographic display. It showed the Valkyrie Empire, all 47 star systems connected by trade routes and military supply lines. "This is what we offer," Thelax said. "Protection, technology, membership in the greatest empire this galaxy has ever seen. Your species would benefit greatly. All we ask in return is loyalty and tribute." Nari listened carefully, then she smiled. "Thank you for the generous offer, Commander. But humanity must respectfully decline. We don't seek to join empires. We seek to build friendships between equal partners." Thelax leaned forward. "We have 12,000 warships. We have weapons that can destroy planets. 23 species have accepted our protection. What makes you think you can refuse? Nari's smile never wavered. Because, Commander, we've spent our entire history fighting impossible odds. We're very good at it. First contact with humanity. The Empire was told to withdraw immediately. The diplomatic meeting continued for 3 hours. Commander Thelax presented the Velkari Empire's terms again and again. Each time, Ambassador Nari politely refused. The human woman never raised her voice, never showed fear, never wavered. It was beginning to frustrate the Velkari commander. Perhaps you don't understand the situation, Thelax said, his 4 hands gesturing at the holographic display. We control 47 star systems. Our military has never lost a war. Species that refuse our protection face consequences. Dr. Hyun leaned forward. The older scientist had been quiet during most of the meeting, but now he spoke calmly. Commander, may I share something with you? I think it might help you understand humanity better. Thelax waved a hand. Speak. Dr. Hyun activated his own display. Images appeared in the air between them. Ancient buildings, stone pyramids, medieval castles, modern cities. This is human history, Dr. Hyun began. We have written records going back 10,000 years. In that time, we have fought over 30,000 wars. Major wars, minor conflicts, tribal battles. We've fought over land, resources, religion, pride, and sometimes just because we forgot why we started fighting in the first place. The Velkari delegation watched the images flash by. Armies clashing with swords, ships firing cannons, aircraft dropping bombs. The violence was constant, relentless. We developed nuclear weapons 200 years ago, Dr. Hyun continued. These are bombs that can destroy entire cities. We built thousands of them. We pointed them at each other for decades, ready to end our own species at any moment. Thelax felt a chill. Nuclear weapons? While still confined to one planet? That was madness. How did you survive? Asked Rickson, the Velkari science officer. Barely, Captain Jiwon answered. 30 years ago, we had the last war. 6 billion people lived on Earth then. When the war ended, only 4 billion remained. 2 billion dead in 73 years of fighting. The Velkari sat in stunned silence. 2 billion casualties in a single war? That's when we unified, Nari explained. Not because we became peaceful or enlightened. We unified because we realized we were about to make ourselves extinct. So we stopped fighting each other and started preparing for what might be out there in the stars. Dr. Hyun brought up new images. Shipyards in orbit, weapons research facilities, training centers for soldiers and pilots. For 30 years, we've been preparing for the possibility that we're not alone in the universe. We built ships, we developed weapons, we trained our people, we hoped we'd meet friends out here, but we prepared for enemies. Commander Thelax studied the images carefully. Some of the technology looked primitive compared to Velkari systems, but some of it looked disturbingly advanced, and the scale of production was enormous. You achieved faster-than-light travel while your world was still divided into nations? Rickson asked, his voice full of disbelief. 6 separate space programs, Engineer Yuna spoke up for the first time. She was young, barely 30, with bright eyes and an enthusiastic smile. My country, Korea, teamed up with Japan and China. North America had their own program. The European Union had one. Even the African Federation developed their own designs. We were competing to reach Mars first. You went to space while competing against each other? Rickson's purple skin had turned pale. While fighting wars? We're a very competitive species, Yuna admitted cheerfully. But we're also really good at solving problems under pressure. Nothing motivates human innovation quite like fear and competition. Thelax felt his confidence beginning to crack. The Velkari had followed a logical path to the stars. They had unified their world first. Then they had developed space travel. Then they had built an empire slowly and carefully over 400 years. These humans had done everything backward and had somehow survived. Let me show you something else, Dr. Hyun said quietly. He brought up chemical formulas, engineering diagrams, and technical specifications. This is all publicly available information from Earth's internet. Our global information network. Anyone can access it. The Valkyrie science officer leaned close to study the diagrams. His eyes widened in horror. These are weapon designs, Rickson whispered. Biological weapons, chemical weapons, antimatter bombs, genetic plagues. This one could sterilize an entire planet. Why would you make this information public? Education, Dr. Hune answered simply. We teach our children about these weapons so they understand what we're capable of. So they remember why we can never go back to the old ways. Knowledge of destruction helps us choose peace. Your children learn how to destroy worlds? Rickson looked sick. Our children play video games where they conquer galaxies, Yuna added helpfully. It's entertainment. Last year, the most popular game simulated a war between humanity and an alien empire. The human players won by using tactics so brutal that the game company had to add content warnings. Captain Jiwon cleared her throat, giving Yuna a warning look. The young engineer was being a bit too enthusiastic. Jiwon turned back to the Valkyrie delegation. What we're trying to explain, Commander, is that humans have a very complicated relationship with war. We're good at it. Terrifyingly good. We've spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing each other. We know every trick, every strategy, every weapon that works. But we're tired of it, Nari added softly. We don't want to fight you. We genuinely want peace. We want to trade with the Valkyrie Empire. We want to learn from you and share what we know. We want to be friends. But we won't be subjects, Jiwon finished. We won't surrender our freedom. We've fought too hard to govern ourselves. If the Valkyrie Empire insists on conquest, we will resist. And human resistance isn't like what you've faced before. Commander Thelax stood up slowly. His forearms were tense. This meeting had not gone as planned. Not at all. The Empire does not make empty threats, he said coldly. If you refuse our protection, you refuse our friendship. The Emperor will not be pleased. We understand, Nari replied calmly. But the decision stands. Humanity will remain independent. Thelax and his delegation left the diplomatic chamber in silence. As they walked back to their shuttle, the Valkyrie commander noticed more details about the station. Human workers repairing complex machinery with casual expertise. Children laughing as they played in zero-gravity chambers. Scientists debating quantum physics equations written on transparent boards. This species had built all of this while fighting themselves. What could they build now that they were united? Back on the shuttle, Rickson turned to his commander. Sir, I recommend we report these findings to the Emperor. These humans are dangerous, not because they're aggressive, but because they're competent. They innovate faster than any species we've encountered. They survived nuclear weapons, multiple world wars, and near extinction. They built cities in space while their planet was divided. If we give them time, they'll become more powerful than us. Thelax nodded slowly. Send the report. Include everything. The Emperor needs to understand what we're facing. On Mars Station 7, Ambassador Nari and her team watched the Valkyrie shuttle depart. Do you think they'll attack? Captain Jiwon asked. Probably, Nari sighed. They've never been refused before. Pride won't let them back down without some show of force. Dr. Hyun looked worried. Can we really win against an empire with 12,000 warships? Colonel Seojin spoke from his position by the door. The security chief had been silent during the meeting, but now he smiled grimly. We don't have to win, Doctor. We just have to make victory too expensive. Humans are experts at that. We've been doing it to each other for 10,000 years. Captain Jiwon activated her communication link to Earth. Admiral Taiho, this is Jiwon. Negotiations have failed. The Valkyrie are returning to their ships. I think they're going to escalate. Taiho's voice came back immediately from Earth. Understood, Captain. All fleets are on standby. We're ready for whatever comes next. Sir, Jiwon said quietly, I hope we don't have to show them what we're really capable of. So do I, Captain, Taiho replied. So do I. But if they force our hand, we'll do what humans have always done. We'll survive, no matter the cost. High above Mars, the Valkyrie ships activated their faster-than-light drives and disappeared into the depths of space. They were heading back to the Empire's capital to deliver their report. Behind them, Mars Station 7 continued its slow orbit around the red planet. Lights glowed in the darkness. People lived and worked and prepared. The Velkari Empire had 12,000 warships and controlled 47 star systems. Humanity had 300 ships and controlled one solar system. By every logical measure, the Empire had already won. But Commander Thelax had seen something in Ambassador Nari's eyes during the meeting. It wasn't fear or submission, it was determination. It was the look of someone who had survived impossible odds before and would do it again. The Velkari Empire was about to learn a painful lesson. Some species submitted because they valued survival over pride. Some species submitted because they feared destruction. Humans had faced destruction countless times in their history. They had brought themselves to the edge of extinction and pulled back at the last moment. They knew exactly how close they could push things before the end. And they weren't afraid to go right to that edge again. The Empire had been warned to withdraw. They had chosen not to listen. Now they would learn why that was a mistake. First contact with humanity. The Empire was told to withdraw. Immediately. 2 weeks passed after the failed diplomatic meeting. In the Velkari Empire's capital, Emperor Kethzar received Commander Thelax's report with growing anger. No species had ever refused the Empire's protection before. The humans were young, weak, confined to a single star system. Their refusal was an insult. "Send a battle fleet," the Emperor commanded. 50 warships. Tell these humans that the Empire's patience has limits. They will accept our protection or face the consequences. The Velkari fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system 3 days later. 50 warships, each one bristling with weapons capable of destroying cities. The fleet commander, Admiral Torvek, sent a message toward the inner planets. "This is the Velkari Imperial Fleet. We come to enforce the Emperor's will. The human species will submit to Imperial protection within 1 standard hour. Refusal will result in military action." Admiral Tejo stood in Earth's command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing every ship in the human fleet. He was calm despite the threat. He had expected this. Empires didn't accept refusal easily. He had seen the same arrogance in human empires during the Unification War. "Sir, 3 of our ships are in position to intercept," an officer reported. "The Indomitable, Resilience, and Defiance. Captain Junho is requesting permission to engage." "Tell Captain Junho to meet the Velkari fleet but not to fire unless fired upon," Taiho ordered. "Let's see if we can still resolve this peacefully." In space, 3 human warships moved to intercept the Velkari fleet. They looked tiny compared to the massive alien vessels. The Indomitable was the flagship, commanded by Captain Junho. He was a veteran officer who had served in the Unification War. He knew what war truly cost. "Open a channel to the Velkari commander," Junho ordered. Admiral Torvek's face appeared on the view screen. The Velkari officer looked confident, almost bored. "3 ships?" Torvek said mockingly. "This is your entire response? Human, we have 50 warships. Your resistance is meaningless." Captain Junho kept his expression neutral. "Admiral, we don't want to fight you. Please, reconsider. Turn your fleet around. The Velkari Empire and humanity can find a peaceful solution." "The solution is simple," Torvek replied. "Submit or be destroyed. You have 55 minutes remaining." Junho glanced at his weapons officer, Lieutenant Hana. She was young but extremely skilled. Her hands rested calmly on her console, ready for whatever came next. "Admiral Torvek," Junho said carefully, "before any fighting begins, perhaps we could demonstrate our respective capabilities. You could show us your weapons and we could show you ours. Then both sides would understand what a conflict would truly mean." Torvek laughed. It was a cruel sound. "You want to see Velkari power? Very well. Watch in despair, human." The Velkari fleet designated an asteroid drifting in the outer system. It was roughly 1 kilometer across, composed of iron and rock. A good target for demonstration. "Fire plasma cannons," Torvek commanded. 3 Velkari ships opened fire simultaneously. Brilliant streams of superheated plasma crossed the void of space and struck the asteroid. The temperature at impact exceeded 10 million degrees. The asteroid didn't just melt. It vaporized instantly, turning into expanding gas and vapor. Impressive, Captain Junho admitted. Your weapons are very powerful. That is 1% of our fleet's firepower, Torvek said smugly. Now you understand. Submit, and your species will be spared. Resist, and every human city will suffer the same fate as that asteroid. Junho was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke softly. Admiral, we appreciate your demonstration. Now please allow us to show you one of our weapons, just so you understand what you're facing. Torvek waved a hand dismissively. Show me your primitive technology, human. It won't change anything. Lieutenant Hana's fingers moved across her console. The Indomitable had many weapon systems, but for this demonstration she selected one of the older systems. A simple kinetic weapon. No explosives, no fancy energy beams, just mass and velocity. Target designated, Hana reported. Asteroid approximately 50,000 kilometers distant. Mass estimated at 800,000 tons. Fire when ready, Lieutenant, Junho ordered. On the outer hull of the Indomitable, a magnetic acceleration system activated. It was a railgun, one of humanity's earliest space weapons. The projectile was simple. A tungsten rod, 3 meters long and half a meter wide. No warhead, no fuel, no complex systems, just dense metal. The magnetic coils fired in sequence. In less than a second, the tungsten rod was accelerated to 90% of the speed of light. The rod crossed 50,000 kilometers in less than 2 seconds. When it struck the asteroid, the laws of physics took over. At relativistic speeds, kinetic energy approaches infinity. The tungsten rod hit with a force equivalent to several hundred nuclear weapons. The asteroid didn't vaporize. It didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist. One moment, it was there. The next moment, there was only an expanding cloud of plasma and particles. The shockwave from the impact rippled through space, detected by sensors 3 star systems away. On the Velkari flagship, every alarm started screaming. The sensors couldn't fully process what they had just witnessed. The energy release was beyond anything in their databases. Admiral Torvek stared at his displays in shock. His 4 hands gripped his command chair until his knuckles turned white. What was that? He whispered. Lieutenant Hana's calm voice came over the communication channel. That was a relativistic kinetic weapon. We call it an RKV. Humanity developed them 40 years ago during the Unification War. We built 40,000 of them and placed them in orbit around Earth, Mars, and Venus. We don't use them anymore because they're too indiscriminate. They can't be stopped once fired, and they carry too much collateral damage risk. She paused, then added, We consider them obsolete technology. We have much better weapons now. Captain Junho spoke directly to Admiral Torvek. Admiral, each of those projectiles cost us almost nothing to produce. Just refined metal and electricity. We can fire thousands of them. Your plasma cannons are impressive, but they take time to recharge. Our railguns can fire continuously. And unlike your energy weapons, our projectiles can't be blocked by shields or deflected by magnetic fields. They're just mass-traveling at absurd speeds. Torvek found his voice. This changes nothing. We still have 50 warships. You have 3. True, Junho acknowledged. But Admiral, think carefully about what you just saw. That asteroid was destroyed by a telephone pole made of metal. Just one shot. Now imagine what happens if you try to invade Earth. We have 40,000 of those weapons pointed outward from our planet. We could fire them all simultaneously. Every ship in your fleet would face hundreds of those projectiles. Could your shield stop them? Could you evade objects traveling at 90% of light speed? The Velkari admiral said nothing. His tactical officers were running calculations, and the results terrified them. At relativistic speeds, even their advanced sensors would have only seconds of warning. Their ships were large, powerful, but also slow to maneuver. Dodging hundreds of projectiles traveling that fast would be impossible. And that's just the old weapons, Lieutenant Hana added helpfully. The ones we don't use anymore. Should I demonstrate our modern systems? No, Torvek said quickly. Too quickly. He took a breath to compose himself. That won't be necessary. Back on Earth, Admiral Taiho watched the Velkari fleet's formations. They had stopped advancing. The ships were holding position, clearly communicating with each other. The tactical advantage had shifted dramatically. "Sir, the Velkari are requesting a direct communication with you," an officer reported. "Put it through," Taiho ordered. Admiral Torvek appeared on the screen. He looked shaken but was trying to maintain his dignity. "Admiral Taiho, I presume?" Torvek said. "Yes. I'm the commander of Earth's Unified Defense Fleet. Your weapons are more advanced than we expected," Torvek admitted carefully. "But you must understand, the Velkari Empire cannot simply withdraw. Our honor, our reputation—" "I understand pride, Admiral," Taiho interrupted gently. "I've been a soldier for 40 years. I've fought in wars where pride killed millions. Let me ask you something. How many ships are you willing to lose to maintain that pride? 10, 20, all 50? Torvek was silent. Taiho continued. "We don't want to destroy your fleet. We don't want war with the Velkari Empire. We just want to be left alone to govern ourselves. Is that really worth dying for?" "The Emperor has given his command," Torvek said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Then ask the Emperor if he wants to sacrifice 50 ships to conquer one solar system," Taiho suggested. "Because that's what it will cost. Minimum. And every ship you lose, we'll study. We'll learn from. We'll use that knowledge to build better defenses. The Velkari Empire might eventually win through sheer numbers, but the cost will be extraordinary. Is one star system worth that price?" Admiral Torvek looked at his tactical displays. 50 warships. Each one carried a crew of hundreds. Thousands of Velkari lives under his command. Could he really order them to their deaths for the sake of imperial pride? "I need to consult with the Emperor," Torvek finally said. "Take all the time you need, Admiral," Taiho replied. "My ships will remain in position. We won't fire unless fired upon. The choice is yours." The communication ended. On the Indomitable, Captain Junho let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Do you think they'll leave?" Lieutenant Hana asked quietly. "I don't know," Junho admitted, "but we gave them a reason to reconsider. Sometimes that's all you can do." The Velkari fleet held its position at the edge of the solar system. Inside the flagship, Admiral Torvek composed a message to the Emperor. It was not an easy message to write. He had to admit that the humans were more dangerous than anticipated, that their weapons were frighteningly effective, that attacking them would cost far more than expected. He sent the message and waited for a reply, knowing that the fate of thousands of lives hung in the balance. In Earth's command center, Admiral Taiho watched and waited. He had shown the Velkari what humanity could do. Now he could only hope they were smart enough to walk away. The next move belonged to the Empire. First contact with humanity. The Empire was told to withdraw immediately. The message from Admiral Torvek reached the Velkari Emperor within hours. Kethazar read it 3 times, his forearms trembling with rage. The humans had forced his fleet to halt. They had demonstrated weapons that made his admirals nervous. No species had ever done this before. But the Emperor's anger was mixed with something else. Fear. If word spread that the mighty Velkari Empire had been stopped by a single system species, the other 23 subject species might begin to question imperial authority. Rebellions could start. The Empire could fracture. "Bring me Fleet Marshal Kaksath," the Emperor commanded. Kaksath was the Empire's greatest military leader. He had conquered 12 star systems personally and had never lost a battle in 40 years of service. When he entered the throne room, he bowed deeply. "Your Majesty," Kaksath said in his deep voice. "The humans have embarrassed us," Emperor Kethazar said bluntly. "I want you to take the Grand Armada and crush them. Show the galaxy that the Velkari Empire cannot be defied." Kaksath nodded. "How many ships, Your Majesty?" 200, our finest vessels. Make an example of them." The Grand Armada had never been fully deployed against a single enemy before. It was massive overkill, but the Emperor wanted to send a message. The Velkari Empire would not be humiliated. Fleet Marshal Kaksath was a practical warrior, however. Before launching his attack, he wanted intelligence. He ordered his science teams to analyze everything they could find about humanity. The Velkari had excellent long-range sensors. They could monitor radio transmissions, scan orbital facilities, even access the human internet. What Cakesath's team discovered horrified them. The chief intelligence officer, a young Velkari named Pixal, presented his findings to the fleet marshal. "Sir, the humans have been remarkably careless with their information security," Pixal began. "Their entire global network is essentially unencrypted. We've downloaded terabytes of data, historical records, technical specifications, cultural information, everything." "And what have you learned?" Cakesath asked. Pixal's hands shook slightly as he activated a holographic display. "Sir, these humans are insane." Images filled the air. Ancient human warriors attacking each other with primitive weapons, medieval armies besieging cities, modern wars with tanks and aircraft and nuclear weapons. "They've been fighting constantly for their entire recorded history," Pixal explained. "We found documentation of over 30,000 distinct conflicts. They have 47 different words for war in their primary language. 47. The Velkari language has 3. More images appeared. Concentration camps, bombed cities, mass graves. "They've committed genocide against their own species multiple times," Pixal continued, his voice shaking. "Not against aliens, not against other species, against other humans. They've killed millions of their own kind over differences in religion, skin color, and political ideology." Cakesath watched in silence. As a warrior, he had seen death. But this was different. This was systematic, industrial-scale slaughter. "The humans developed atomic weapons in their year 1945, Pixal said. "They immediately used them against each other. 2 cities destroyed in seconds. Then they built more, thousands more. For decades, they maintained the ability to destroy their entire planet. They called it mutually assured destruction. The idea was that if everyone could destroy everyone else, no one would start a war." "That's madness," Cakesath muttered. "It gets worse, sir," Pixal continued. "We found their entertainment media. Their children play video games where they simulate planetary conquest and species extinction. For fun. The most popular game last year involved a war between humanity and an alien empire. The human players won by releasing a biological weapon that sterilized the alien species." "It's fiction," Cakesath said, trying to convince himself. "Yes, sir. But fiction reveals cultural values. The humans view total war as entertainment. They study genocide as history. They teach their children detailed information about weapons of mass destruction in schools, not to train soldiers, but for general education." Cakesath stood up and paced. "What about their current military capabilities?" "That's the terrifying part, sir," Pixal said quietly. "We've identified several weapons programs that go beyond the relativistic kinetic weapons they demonstrated. Antimatter warheads, self-replicating nanobots designed to disassemble ships at the molecular level, AI-controlled drone swarms, and something called Project Causality, which appears to involve manipulating space-time itself." "Space-time manipulation?" Cakesath stopped pacing. "That's theoretical. Even we haven't achieved that." "The humans have, sir, or they're very close. The project files are heavily encrypted, but we found references to successful small-scale tests." For the first time in his 40-year military career, Fleet Marshal Cakesath felt genuine fear. Not for himself, but for his crews. He had 200 ships filled with loyal Velkari warriors. If the humans were truly as dangerous as this data suggested, how many of those warriors would die? "There's one more thing, sir," Pixal said hesitantly. "We found a historical document called the Geneva Conventions. It was an agreement between human nations about rules of warfare. Rules about not targeting civilians, not using certain weapons, treating prisoners humanely." "That's good," Cakesath said. "They have honor codes." "Had, sir," Pixal corrected. "The conventions were written in their year 1949. They've been violated in every major war since. The humans write rules for warfare, then break them when convenient. And, sir, the humans officially suspended the Geneva Conventions 30 years ago when they unified. Their reasoning was that the conventions only apply to wars between human nations. For external threats, there are no rules." Cakesath sat down heavily in his command chair. He had requested intelligence, and now he wished he hadn't. Before the Grand Armada could launch, another message arrived from the humans. It was addressed directly to the Velkari Emperor, but Fleet Marshal Caixath intercepted it first. He wanted to see what the humans had to say. The message was from someone named General Minji. She appeared on the screen, a human woman who looked to be in her 50s. She had scars on her face and hands. A veteran, Caixath recognized. Someone who had seen real combat. Emperor Kethzar, General Minji began, her voice calm but firm. We know you're preparing to send a larger fleet. Our long-range sensors have detected the mobilization. Before you launch your attack, we want to show you something. Consider it a final warning. The transmission switched to a visual recording. It showed a human weapons testing facility somewhere in deep space. Engineers worked around massive machines that Caixath didn't recognize. This is one of our antimatter production facilities, General Minji's voice narrated. Antimatter is the most destructive substance in the known universe. When it contacts normal matter, both are converted entirely into energy. We produce approximately 10 kilograms of antimatter per day. The image showed a small container, no larger than a human fist. This warhead contains 100 grams of antimatter. Watch what it does to a decommissioned ship. The container was fired at an old human vessel floating in space. Upon impact, there was a flash of light brighter than any star. When the light faded, the ship had completely vanished. Not destroyed or broken apart. Completely gone, converted to pure energy. We have 4,000 antimatter warheads in our arsenal, General Minji continued. Each one can destroy a vessel the size of a Velkari battlecruiser. The transmission showed another facility. This one was filled with millions of tiny objects, each one barely visible. These are self-replicating nanobots. They're designed to infiltrate enemy ships through any opening, then disassemble the vessel at the molecular level. Each nanobot can create copies of itself using available materials. One nanobot becomes 2, 2 become 4, 4 become 8. Exponential growth. Within hours, a single nanobot introduced to a ship can multiply into billions. The ship doesn't explode. It just falls apart into component atoms. Caixath felt sick. This was beyond warfare. This was horror. The transmission showed drone facilities. Millions of small autonomous spacecraft. Our AI drone swarms operate independently. They're programmed to identify and destroy threats without human oversight. Once released, they cannot be recalled or reasoned with. They simply execute their programming until all designated targets are eliminated. Finally, the transmission showed something that made no sense to Caixath. A strange machine surrounded by warning symbols. This is Project Causality, General Minji said quietly. It manipulates space-time to create localized temporal distortions. In simple terms, it can make time move at different speeds in different locations. We could make your fleet age centuries in seconds. Or we could freeze you in time while the rest of the universe moves on. It's experimental, unstable, and dangerous even to us. But it works. The transmission returned to General Minji's face. She looked tired and sad. We don't want to use any of these weapons, she said softly. We built them out of fear and paranoia during the darkest period of our history. We hoped we'd never need them. But make no mistake, if you attack us, we will use everything we have. Every weapon, every tactic, every horror we've developed over 10,000 years of warfare. She leaned forward, looking directly at the camera. Your empire fights with honor. You value the lives of your warriors. You negotiate surrenders to minimize casualties. These are admirable qualities. We respect them. But we're not like you. Humans don't know how to surrender. When we unified 30 years ago, it wasn't because we achieved enlightenment. It was because we stood at the edge of extinction and chose survival over pride. We've lived with the knowledge that we almost destroyed ourselves. It made us paranoid, cautious, and extremely well-armed. General Minji stood up. Please, Fleet Marshal Caixath, we know you're watching this. We know you're a warrior with a distinguished career. Don't throw away the lives of your crews. Don't make us show the galaxy what desperate humans are capable of. There's no honor in what would happen. Just death and horror for both our species. Withdraw your fleet. Let's find a peaceful solution, please. The transmission ended. Fleet Marshal Cakesoth sat in silence for a long time. Around him, his officers waited for orders. Finally, he spoke. Send a message to the Emperor. Tell him I need to discuss our strategy before proceeding. And send a message to the human General Minji. Tell her the Grand Armada will hold position while we reconsider our approach. For the first time in 400 years, the Valkyrie Empire hesitated before a battle. And in that hesitation, the seeds of peace were planted. First contact. With humanity, the Empire was told to withdraw. Immediately. The Valkyrie Imperial Council chamber was filled with tension. Emperor Kethzar sat on his throne, surrounded by his advisors, military commanders, and senior officials. Fleet Marshal Cakesoth stood at the center, presenting his findings about the human threat. Your Majesty, Cakesoth said gravely, I must revise my initial assessment. The humans are far more dangerous than we realized. Not because of their technology alone, but because of their mindset. They approach warfare with a totality that we cannot match. You're asking me to retreat? The Emperor said coldly. The Valkyrie Empire has never retreated. I'm asking you to reconsider the cost of victory, Cakesoth replied carefully. Yes, we can defeat them. We have more ships, more resources, more territory. But the price will be catastrophic. My analysts predict we could lose between 60 and 120 ships in a full assault on their solar system. That's more than half the Grand Armada. A murmur ran through the council. Those were unacceptable losses. And even if we win, Cakesoth continued, we would gain a single star system filled with a hostile population that knows how to build weapons of mass destruction. They would resist occupation indefinitely. Every city would be a battlefield, every human a potential threat. It would be a bleeding wound on the Empire for generations. The Emperor's 4 hands gripped the arms of his throne. What are you suggesting? Request a diplomatic audience with the humans, Cakesoth said, not as conquerors, but as equals. Let me send negotiators who understand that this species is different from any we've encountered before. Before the Emperor could respond, another advisor spoke up. It was Vexir, the Imperial Science Coordinator. Your Majesty, may I add something? Vexir asked. The Emperor gestured for him to speak. We've been analyzing human technological advancement, Vexir explained. In 30 years of unification, they've progressed from barely achieving interplanetary travel to developing faster-than-light drives, antimatter weapons, and theoretical space-time manipulation. That's a rate of advancement we've never seen before. Vexir activated a holographic projection showing technological progress curves for multiple species. The Valkyrie Empire took 400 years to develop FTL travel after achieving spaceflight. Most species take between 200 and 600 years. Humans did it in 30, and they did it while rebuilding from a devastating war that killed billions. Their innovation curve is exponential. What does that mean for us? The Emperor asked. It means that if we engage them in a prolonged conflict, they'll innovate faster than we can adapt, Vexir said bluntly. Every battle would teach them something new about our technology. Within a decade, they might surpass us completely. Within a century, they could be the dominant power in this region of space. The council chamber fell silent. The implications were staggering. There's another option, said Ambassador Lixana, the Empire's senior diplomat. We could offer them genuine partnership, not subjugation, but alliance. The humans have technology and innovation we lack. We have knowledge, resources, and established trade networks they need. Together, we could both benefit. Emperor Kethzar closed his 4 eyes and thought. He had ruled the Empire for 60 years. He had overseen the conquest of 15 star systems. He had built his legacy on expansion and power. But he was also pragmatic. A smart ruler knew when to fight and when to negotiate. Arrange a meeting, the Emperor finally said. Send our best diplomats, and send scientists who can discuss genuine technological exchange, not just demands. If the humans want to be treated as equals, let's see if they can act like equals. 3 days later, a Valkyrie diplomatic vessel approached Earth. This time, there were no battle cruisers, no shows of force. just a single ship carrying diplomats and scientists. Dr. Jiho, Earth's leading xenoanthropologist, was selected to meet with the Velkari delegation. She traveled to Earth's orbital station Unity 1, where the meeting would take place. Captain Suji accompanied her, representing Earth's military interests. The Velkari delegation was led by Ambassador Lixana, who had argued for peace in the Imperial Council. With her came scientists, trade specialists, and cultural experts. When Lixana stepped into the meeting chamber and saw the humans waiting, she noticed something immediately. They weren't wearing military uniforms. They were dressed in civilian clothes, looking relaxed and friendly. "Welcome to Unity 1, Dr. Jiho said warmly in fluent Velkari. "We're honored by your visit." Lixana bowed in the traditional Velkari greeting. "Thank you for receiving us. I must admit I expected a more guarded reception after recent events." Dr. Jiho smiled. "We don't hold grudges, Ambassador. You were following orders. We understand how empires work. We used to have several on Earth." "Used to?" Lixana asked, curious. "They all collapsed eventually," Dr. Jiho explained as they sat down. "Empires are inherently unstable. They grow until they become too large to manage efficiently, then they fragment. It's a pattern repeated throughout human history." She activated a holographic display showing Earth's history. The rise and fall of Rome, Persia, Mongolia, the British Empire, and others. "We learned that lasting peace doesn't come from conquest," Dr. Jiho continued. "It comes from mutual respect and cooperation. That's why we unified as a federation rather than an empire. Each region maintains its autonomy while cooperating on matters that affect everyone." Ambassador Lixana studied the displays thoughtfully. "Your Emperor Kethzar sent me to discuss a possible alliance. But first, I must ask, why are you so different from other species we've encountered? Why do you resist so fiercely when others submit?" Dr. Jiho leaned back in her chair, considering the question. "May I speak frankly, Ambassador?" "Please." "The Velkari Empire evolved on a world with abundant resources and few existential threats," Dr. Jiho began. "Your historical records show that your species developed civilization relatively peacefully. You had conflicts, yes, but nothing like what humans experienced." She brought up images of Earth's harsh environments: ice ages, deserts, predators. "Humans evolved on a world that was actively hostile to us. We're physically weak compared to most predators. We have no natural weapons, no armor, no speed. We survived by being clever, adaptable, and absolutely relentless. When a predator threatened us, we hunted it to extinction. When the climate changed, we adapted or migrated. When resources became scarce, we fought each other for survival." "That sounds like a nightmare," Lixana said quietly. "It was," Dr. Jiho agreed. "For hundreds of thousands of years, humans lived on the edge of extinction. We developed a psychology of survival at any cost. We learned to cooperate in tribes for mutual protection, but we also learned to fight viciously against outsiders. That combination of cooperation and aggression made us incredibly effective as a species, but also incredibly dangerous to ourselves." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "When you offered us protection, Ambassador, what we heard was subjugation. Every empire in human history that offered protection was actually offering slavery. The strong protecting the weak is just another way of saying the strong controlling the weak. We've seen that pattern too many times. We won't accept it anymore." Captain Suji spoke up for the first time. "But we're not unreasonable. We understand the value of alliances and partnerships. If the Velkari Empire treats us as equals, we can accomplish amazing things together." Ambassador Lixana nodded slowly. "The Emperor authorized me to offer a formal treaty. Not a protection agreement, but a mutual cooperation pact. The Velkari Empire recognizes human sovereignty over your solar system. In exchange, we propose open trade, scientific collaboration, and a mutual defense agreement." Dr. Jiho and Captain Suji exchanged glances. "That sounds acceptable," Dr. Jiho said carefully. "But we'd need to negotiate the specific terms. Humans are very particular about contracts and agreements." "Of course," Lixana agreed. "But before we begin formal negotiations, I need to ask, Will you share your weapons technology with us? Dr. Jiho shook her head firmly. No, we won't share weapons technology with anyone. We barely trust ourselves with it, but we'd be happy to share other technologies. Medicine, energy production, agriculture, material science. We have a lot to offer beyond weapons. And we have much to offer you, Lixana said. Advanced navigation systems, exotic matter production, biological science, cultural knowledge from 23 different species. Together, we could both prosper. The negotiations continued for 3 weeks. Human and Velkari diplomats worked through every detail of the proposed treaty. There were disagreements, compromises, and occasional heated debates. But slowly, an agreement took shape. The final treaty recognized humanity's complete independence while establishing trade routes, cultural exchange programs, and scientific collaboration. The Velkari Empire agreed to never again send military forces into human territory without explicit permission. Humanity agreed to share non-military technology and expertise. When Emperor Kethzar signed the treaty, he made a public statement to the Empire. The humans have taught us a valuable lesson, the Emperor said. Not all species need our protection. Some species are strong enough to stand on their own. The Velkari Empire is stronger when we have allies, not subjects. Today, we gain allies. On Earth, Admiral Taiho watched the treaty signing with deep relief. Beside him, General Minji smiled for the first time in weeks. We did it, Minji said quietly. We kept our independence without firing a shot. We showed them our weapons and hoped they'd be smart enough to walk away, Taiho replied. Fortunately, they were. But we came very close to war. Will the other species in the Empire ask for independence now? Minji wondered. Probably, Taiho said. And that's not our problem. We're not trying to break up their empire. We just wanted to stay out of it. 6 months later, the first cultural exchange program began. 20 Velkari students arrived at Seoul Interstellar Academy to study human history and technology. They were nervous, having heard stories about humanity's violent past. But the human students welcomed them warmly. They shared food from different Earth cultures. They laughed together over jokes that didn't quite translate. They played sports and studied together. One young Velkari student named Rixel found himself sitting in a cafeteria with his human roommate, a young woman named Yuna. Can I ask you something? Rixel said hesitantly. Of course, Yuna replied cheerfully. Are humans really as dangerous as our government says? Yuna thought for a moment, stirring her coffee. We can be, she said honestly. We have the capacity for terrible violence. Our history proves that. But we also have the capacity for incredible kindness, creativity, and cooperation. We built weapons that could destroy planets, yes? But we also built art, music, philosophy, and science. We're complicated. Which side wins? Rixel asked. That depends on which side we choose to nurture, Yuna said with a smile. For most of our history, we chose violence because we didn't know any better. Now we're trying to choose cooperation instead. It's harder, but it's better. Rixel relaxed a little. I'm glad we didn't fight you. So are we, Yuna said sincerely. Wars are easy to start but hard to end. Peace is hard to start but easy to maintain. We'd much rather have you as friends than enemies. Above Earth, construction continued on the joint Human-Velkari research station. Engineers from both species worked side by side, sharing knowledge and building something new together. The station would study exotic physics, develop new propulsion systems, and serve as a symbol of cooperation between two very different civilizations. In the classified military installations hidden throughout human space, the weapons remained ready. The antimatter warheads, the nanobots, the railguns, and all the other tools of destruction humanity had created. They sat in storage, maintained but unused. Humanity hoped they would stay that way forever. But if another threat emerged, if another empire tried to conquer Earth, those weapons would be ready. Because humans had learned the most important lesson from their violent history. The best way to preserve peace is to be prepared for war. The galaxy was learning that lesson now. The small species from the single star system had refused to submit. They had demonstrated weapons that terrified even the mighty Velkari Empire. Word spread to other civilizations. Humanity was dangerous, innovative, and absolutely unwilling to be conquered. But the galaxy also learned something else. Humanity was willing to be friends. They sought cooperation, not conquest. They wanted to explore, learn, and build, not destroy. In the years that followed, other species would approach humanity carefully, respectfully, and as equals, and humanity would welcome them with open minds and closed weapons vaults. The message was clear. Befriend humanity, and you gained allies who would stand beside you against any threat. But try to conquer them, and you would face warriors who had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of survival. The Velkhari Empire had been told to withdraw immediately. They had chosen wisely, and in that choice, they found not subjects, but partners for the future among the stars.